Fire us.
I can't remember who I had down as safety moment.
What's that?
Oh, it was Rory. Okay.
I didn't know that.
Well, I know what the safety moment is. Check your tires before you head up a big hill. There's your safety moment.
All right. So, Jerry, your turn.
What I chose to talk about in inspiration today is to kind of, in lines with, where we are with our club. It's going to take a couple, 3 years before we really figure out who we really are as a group and what we're doing. And I just kind of wanted to do as an inspiration is to assure everybody that even just being a member, a Rotarian member, you have a huge impact on the world. And that's largely why I'm a Rotarian. When I was 17, I had the wonderful opportunity to become an exchange student. And the 40 or 50 Rotarians that were involved with that whole process still have a tremendous impact on my life today, and in turn, a tremendous impact on other people throughout the world. And I just think that's a great thing. Never doubt how much you guys impact the world just by being a Rotarian. That's an absolutely wonderful thing. I will share with you this week that I had a contact from Emilio Porras, who's an associate member of our club. I think we've only seen him on here once or twice. But he contacted me this week, and as soon as he gets his wife's permission, he's going to go to Guatemala with me and act as a interpreter down there. He is a native Mayan from Guatemala originally. So, again, excellent. Wonderful things. We hit the world with some great stuff, and have some patience. This club's going to do some fantastic stuff. That's my inspiration moment for today.
Nice.
Thank you.
Okay, Rory.
Okay, I just wanted to talk about being seen while we're riding. At about 60,000 miles of riding back and forth to work on the expressway, one of the things I learned about was being in my lane. Take your space, own it. Movement is the key to being seen, especially when you have gaps, merging traffic. If you're in the left lane, don't ride on the left side of the lane. Get over to the right, towards the center of the road. That way when people look in the mirror, they don't think there's a gap there and pull in where you're sitting. Same as if you're going the other way. People are coming up, they want to pull over, they see a gap because you're in the right lane on the right side, they're seeing a gap there. They're going to pull in where you're at. That's basically about it for that little blip.
That's why
I have a lot about lane positioning, but I will keep it short.
And that's why you ride with a guy that's got a yellow bike.
Yeah, if only we knew someone. Hey, Linda, can I offer 2 cents worth of a safety?
Yes, please.
I've started watching Pro Rider Pittsburgh videos. And today's video had to do how to mount a motorcycle. Now, I think most of us learned to mount from the left side. The instructor today said mount from the right side with your front end pointed to the left. And oh, thank you. I'm glad you're shaking your head. And he says the reason is if you try and get on and off on the left side and you happen to trip, now you're in traffic, especially if you're like on the margin there, the shoulder. So I thought that was an interesting observation.
Yeah.
I see, oh God, one and only police officer shaking his head yes.
Yeah, well, all the training suggests that the bike is lower on the left side.
Yeah.
So ergonomically, you would want to mount it from that side. You have more stability and control. Especially when you roll like me, you get wobbly. You want to be careful on the bike.
This guy said definitely mount from the right side. You can do it. You grab a hold of the brake first, get stabilization. You have the front end pointed to the left like we mostly do. And I thought it was an interesting observation.
Did he mention which side to dismount?
He said the same side, especially if you've pulled off onto the shoulder.
Yeah.
That way, if something untoward happens, you're not lying in a lane of traffic.
So bikes should be made with their kickstands on the right side?
No, he had a Harley, and
That explains it.
I think most of us mount from the left side, but he was suggesting mount on the right side.
Yeah, but if you dismount on the right side, if the bike, for any reason, because of the contour of the surface, if you're away, the bike falls away from you. That's the rationale for dismounting on the right side. But, everyone's got an argument and a different opinion. Just food for thought.
Hey, Harold, your volume's kind of low.
How about now?
A little better.
Mucho better.
I don't want to yell.
Hey,
Oh, yeah.
I think
you're
each
next cop. It's
situation,
okay to yell.
left or right, would depend on the situation you're in and where you're parked.
Well,
Yeah.
that makes sense too. But I think it's almost like getting on a horse. You always get on a horse on the left side.
But why is that?
I
In
wonder
SF,
if
we
that's.
always teach that you get on the left side as well.
Oh, what was that?
On the Motorcycle Safety Foundation curriculum, and also the CMSP Total Control curriculum with Lee Parks, we always teach mount on the left.
And that's what I learned in motorcycle safety. But this guy is suggesting
Right.
left or right side.
I learned that in my police course too.
Which?
Hey, John,
Yeah,
why do you always mount a horse on the left side?
I don't know.
I do.
Well, tell us.
Back when knights were popular, all the training was done fighting with your right hand.
Mm-hmm.
And the swords were on the left side. You couldn't mount a horse from the right side because you'd have to pick up that heavy sword and fling it over. So it became popular and reasonable to always mount a horse on the left side.
Well, that makes sense.
Done that way, so it's never been changed because horses and people have been trained and taught. There's no other reason to mount a horse on the left side.
I always keep my sword on my left side when I'm on the motorcycle too. So
Yeah, me too.
And you have two reasons for your sword.
anyway, I like Rory's safety thing there. There's no controversy about being seen.
No.
Yeah.
Well, today we're going to learn all about Brian. Hi, Brian.
Hello. So you're going to learn about me sort of quickly. I got an email yesterday. We started a new service. We are working from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. So at 7:30 or 7:40, I got to close it up and get in the car and head into the hospital.
Good, then we can talk about you after you're gone.
Exactly. That's when it's best. You want me to start or?
Go for it. It's all yours.
All right. So I was kind of thinking about this. Funny because here, this group of people that I've only met online for the most part, and what we have in common is the motorcycle. And for me, I grew up in a funny little town down in Baja, California called Los Barriles. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with Baja, but I grew up down there, and my dad built a house down there, and there was an old, funny old yellow and white motorcycle in the garage that my dad had, and it was that old Honda Trail 90. And as soon as I could get on that thing and wrestle the key away from my dad, I was gone. I mean, I was just gone. I would, like, from sundown, or sun up to sundown, I was out. And that was pretty much when I wasn't in school, in boarding school in Arizona, when I was in Mexico, that's what I did was, I had my sort of people that I went and hung out with and the rides that I like to do down in Baja. And that was kind of the way that I grew up. And it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. My mom and dad were a strange couple. They had individual airplanes, and they kind of flew off in separate directions most of the time. And then sometimes we'd get together, but most of the time we would end up down in Mexico most summers, and it was a lot of fun. So I learned how to dive, and I learned how to shoot, and I learned how to do all that fun stuff down there in Baja. And my first real, what I would call real motorcycle that I fell in love with was the old Honda XL 125. And man, when I saw that thing, I could just see myself going way too fast on those great dirt roads that I fell in love with down there. And I did get a hold of that 125, and I spent about a season, I guess, riding that 125. And then I ended up getting a little too squirrely in a corner and going over the handlebars into a big old cholla cactus. And that was my sort of real first episode of holy mackerel. I've hurt myself pretty badly, and I rode crazy for a lot of years, down there in the dirt. And I don't think I've ever been hurt as badly in the dirt or on the street as I've been hurt in the dirt. And I've heard that said before, but I had a lot of close calls on the street, but I've never, knock on wood, I've never been off the back of the bike, except for obviously in the parking lot when you drop it in front of your friends. That's the one that always gets you. So my first driver's license was a California motorcycle license. I didn't have a car license, but I had a California motorcycle license in Redwood City, over there by where Scott lives. And again, pretty much, I was gone on the motorcycle. That was sort of my escape. And whenever I could go, I was gone. And I loved those California back roads and the county roads, and it just didn't get any better than that, Sort of in the meantime, we had a little sailboat, and we did a lot of sailing. My dad was a sailor, and turns out I became a sailor. And my first experience with that was my dad put me in a little 9-foot pram and pushed me off the dock and said, sail it or swim back with it. And so I learned how to sail, and we ended up sailing down to Mexico.
Yeah, it's on.
And so I got a little blue water sailing experience, and I kind of fell in love with that. So when I was old enough to really kind of make decisions and be a big boy, I got together with a buddy, and we had a machine shop in Carson City. And so I rode, and we built cars and kind of were machine heads and played around with all that kind of stuff. And I bought an RD350, one of the Yamaha RD350s, and that was a real fun bike. And geez, the thing that was most fun about it was you had to adjust the reed valves but once a week, because the thing was such a pain in the butt to keep running all the time. So it was fun, and that shop did pretty well. We had a lot of fun, and it was a strange time because we had a lot of artisan machinists working at the place. But at that time, there was a new thing coming out, these computer numerical controlled lathes and mills, and the tooling for these things they were all inserts, So the guys that were tool and die makers and grinding tools and making all this beautiful work, they became a dinosaur really fast, those guys. And so we started filling the shop full of these CNC lathes and mills, and we didn't have any way to connect those things together because, we'd write a program to make a part, and then we'd get a printout that was 50 pages long, and then you have to go out to the control and type it all in by hand, on a little keypad. And so that wasn't working too well. So I built a little network that put those machines all together with fiber optic cable. And this was in 88, 89, somewhere around there. And we had this fast fiber optic cable, but we had to communicate through RS-232 serial ports to the machines. And so you couldn't take advantage of any of the speed because the rate that the chips spoke was just pretty slow. But that was my first network, and that was sort of the beginning of my real fun career. We sold the machine shop, and I bought a 32-foot sailboat, and I went sailing for a couple of years. I went down to Mexico, played a while down there, and then I sailed to Hawaii across the Pacific, and I lived in Hawaii for a year. Sailed around, fixed boats, and ate a lot of peanut butter and had a good time. And then I got a phone call from my mom saying, "Hey, your dad's sick. You got to come home." So I loaded up the freezer and sailed back to Fort Bragg and down the coast and pulled my boat up to Sacramento and took care of my pop while he was going through his little, stuff that they go through when you're all getting cancer and doing all that stuff. And while I was there, I had a buddy that he had a bulletin board service, and I don't know if too many of you know what a bulletin board is, but I'll bet Jerry remembers a bulletin board. And he had this big funny rack in his closet, and so he would every once in a while he'd call me and I'd go work on this thing for him, because it was the thing was a nightmare. It was just terrible. And so we learned a lot about this, and at the end of 1990, he said, "Hey, why don't we build an ISP? Why don't we build an internet service provider?" And I said, "Yeah, that sounds like fun. Let's do it." So we ordered a copy of Red Hat Linux, and I built a server, and we got this box, and it had it had to have 12 CDs with Red Hat Linux in it. And the first thing you had to do was you had to build a kernel and then build the install for the kernel for the operating system. It took me a week to install that on that machine. But we hung that machine in at 200 South Virginia Street in downtown Reno, and it ended up being the first internet hung mail server in Reno and on the internet. And we built an ISP, and I started doing some consulting work, and it was really a lot of fun. I had a great time with computers for a lot of years. I built, I'm really not a developer, but I met a guy that was an attorney, and he was running the breast cancer toxic tort for the West Coast, and he needed a guy to come and take care of his computer system and his database. And so I wrote the database for the West Coast toxic tort, for the breast cancer thing, and that was a lot of fun. And I just kind of did a lot of projects like that for a number of years. But I had always wanted to go to medical school. And while this is all going on, of course, I'm riding motorcycles and I'm walking around with my hair down about to the middle of my back, and I'm my basic outfit was a t-shirt and shorts, and if you wanted me to work for you on your computers, you had to put up with me the way it was, and it was that was just me for a lot of years. And I decided that I was getting pretty bored with computers after things started calming down, after the .com bubble or whatever that, it's funny. I never really saw it that way, but I was still consulting for a couple of years after I sold my business, because I was a Unix guy, and nobody worked on Unix machines except these strange people that lived in the closet, and were mushrooms. And so I decided I was gonna go back to school and figure out what the hell I was going to do with my life. And so I went to the community college, and I signed up for fire rescue and an EMT. And I got my EMT and I signed up for fire rescue, and I was on the roof of a burning building with a chainsaw in my hand, and they, you know, teaching you how to do ventilation. And I was 39 years old, and I thought, you know, I'm not going to do this for a living. I'm not gonna be a fire rescue guy that stands on roofs and I said I'm gonna go to medical school. And so during that time, then my mom got sick, and so I sort of balanced my time between my second undergrad degree, which was I went back to school and I got a degree in neuroscience, and I took care of my mom while she was dying, and then I met this wonderful lady that decided that she wanted to have a kid, and I said, hey, you know, you want to have a kid and I want to go to medical school, so we've got we got some work to do. And so we spent a couple of years in we worked it out. You know, we made some agreements and we spent a lot of time, and we got married, and we had a kid, and I got accepted to medical school. And I sort of, during that time that I was going to undergrad, I bought this FJR 1300 that I have, and I fell in love with that motorcycle. I really did. That motorcycle, and I'm never going to get rid of it. You know, it's just one of those things that's going to be in my garage forever. I sold my Road King, and I love my Road King, but I sold it right away to pay for tuition. But my FJ, I'm never going to sell it. So that's kind of my thing. I love that bike, and I wish I could ride it more here in Miami, because I got to tell you, the roads here and the people that drive here, this is just not a place to ride a motorcycle. It's really bad here. Anyway, I got accepted to medical school, and off we went to St. Martin, because it turns out even when you got honors and you know, have a good MCAT score, you don't go to an American medical school when you're 50 and you're applying to medical school. So off we went to the Caribbean, and I did my first 2 years of what we call didactics, or the basic sciences, there in St. Martin. And we fell in love with the island. It was really a great experience. We loved it. And then we came back here to Miami, and they've assigned me to a hospital, and I've been hooked up with this wonderful Rotary Club that you guys have blessed me with. And so kind of here I am, you know. It's I try to ride in as much as I can, but I got to tell you, the way they design the roads here, you go right down the road, and there's no shoulder, and there's a wall, and then on the left side there's no shoulder, and then there's a steel rail, you know, and in between there's 100 different drivers on their telephone texting somebody, and it's absolutely terrifying to ride here. So the only time that I really get to ride is when I have these good shifts where, you know, it's early in the morning or late at night, or when I get out and go down to the Keys or something like that. But that's I've had a lot of motorcycles. I used to buy and sell the old the Honda 754 F model, the Super Sport. I used to buy that bike for $1,000, ride it, and then sell it for $1,000 over and over again. And the second really big lesson I learned on the motorcycle was I had an onion skin tire. Just my front tire was bare. And I was riding down the peninsula, the highway 101 down in Redwood City in the peninsula. And I was about 75 in the fast lane, and I had a front end blowout. And it was all I could do to stay on top of that motorcycle. And I ended up going all the way across the traffic, and ended up in the ice plant on the side of the highway. And I called the Honda shop, and the guy came out and he picked me up. And he had, at that time, there was a VT 1100 Shadow. and he offered me $1,000 for that bike that I'd paid $1,000 for. And so I traded it in and I bought that VT 1100. And that was a fun bike. During that time, I was getting my boat ready to go sail down at Baja. And but it seems like my life has always sort of been around motorcycles one way or the other, because for me, they represent sort of a place that I don't ride with people really ever. I've never been a group rider. For me, riding is a place where I go to be with me. And so really that's it. That's me. I'm not all that interesting. I'm just crazy.
Hey, Brian, I'm right down the street from you in Isla Mirada.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've been down here for the month of August.
Okay. Well, we ought to go for a ride.
Yeah, unfortunately, I put my bike in the shop before I left, and they still got it. So I won't get it back until September when I get home.
Okay.
I thought you had approval, Chris, to buy another bike.
Oh, don't I wish?
You haven't talked to your supervisor about that?
I know better.
Hey, Brian, are you a practicing physician now?
No, I'm a third-year medical student, and so they treat us like practicing physicians, and they use us like practicing physicians, but they don't pay us. We pay. We pay for the abuse. So we work long hours, and we make clinical decisions, just like next year. So in December of next year, I graduate, and then we'll all be a full-on practicing physician.
Brian, you were in Rotary in a couple other clubs?
I was in a club in Carson City, Nevada. That was my first club. And that was an evening club. And that was another group of great people. Just so much fun. When I found Rotary, it was like finding a home. I never really looked back. It was a funny thing. It's just all my friends now that are back home, they're all from Rotary. And then when we got to the island, I found the Mid-Isle Rotary Club, and just another group of, people that I'm just so honored and lucky to have spent some time with. I can't say enough about my experience in Rotary. I wish I had more to give to Rotary because it's always been so good to me.
Well, I'm sure your time's going to come when you become that doctor. Hey, a question for you.
Road. Yeah.
You told me before you were club president at one time?
I was.
Which club?
The Carson City Club. The Rotary Club of Carson City Sunset.
And what year was that?
It was 2009-10.
Ah, cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
It's a great story. You're got to be a motivator for a lot of people to do things when they probably think they can't. That's great.
Well, maybe I think too often that I should be doing stuff that maybe I shouldn't, but I do it anyway.
That's where the learning comes from. And it's just amazing to go from the mechanical background into the electronics and the computer networking, and then to go from there to medical, to neurology. So you can pretty much, it sounds like you can fix anything.
I do, I'm a problem solver, and that's kind of the thing that when you cross an ocean on a sailboat,
yeah,
you learn how to be a problem solver.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow I suspect that your mechanical abilities and your doctoring skills will be combined at some point in your life.
I think the best thing about doing what I'm doing now is sure, maybe the skills are good, but having a little life experience. I work with great 20-something kids, and they're all super bright and wonderful. My peers are wonderful, but they don't have the life experience that I have. So when I go to a bedside, it's a different experience. And so I've been blessed by that.
I'm most impressed with your transoceanic sailing experience. That took a lot of fortitude, and I don't know what else to say, but that's impressive.
In all likelihood, you had some bad weather experiences as well.
I had a friend with me, and we were about halfway across on the way to the Big Island, and I saw a big wall of white water coming, and the big squall line coming, and I said, Marianne, if it's loose, tie it down, and if it's not, throw it overboard, because we got a lot of wind coming, and blew for about 6 days, 60 to 65 knots sustained, gusted to 80. The breakers were almost as high as the spreaders. It was crazy. It was pretty crazy. First thing that broke was the auto helm, and I was in a West Sail 32, and I don't know if anybody knows that boat, but it's a 28,000 pound boat with a tiller and a rudder about the size of a barn door, and so I just sat out there, and when I got tired, I'd heave the boat to and sleep for a while, laid over the tiller, and then unlash the tiller and go back to sailing her. And, that was a great experience for sure.
Sounds very.
Go ahead.
I was going to say it sounds very character building, like anything where you suffer, and then everything after that's kind of cake. Relatively. Never liked the sailboats because they always lean the wrong way in corners compared to a bike.
Well, if you find the right corner, you can go to sleep. If you find the wrong corner, you just fall out of your bunk.
Now, in your medical career, do you plan on specializing in anything?
So I'm interested in psychiatry, and I'm interested in family as well. At this point, I have no desire to do a long residency, so it's going to be 3 or 4 years, and that's going to be it. And I'm looking forward to making money again, because medical school's been a huge drain on my family's pocketbook. So I'm looking forward to reversing the cash flow a little bit. But
you can always join the military as a medical doctor.
I wonder about that at my age. That's an interesting.
How old are you?
I'm 54.
You might be able to join a reserve or National Guard unit, because of the shortage of doctors. They waive a lot of age limits.
That's an interesting idea.
How do you like the desert?
I love the desert here. I'm not sure I'm so excited about the desert where I can't get back to my family.
I know I talked to a lot of doctors just before Desert Storm, and of course they were expecting massive casualties. And those guys, we called up every doctor we could get our hands on, and they wound up being bored. Yep. It's the 100-year or 100-hour war, and there weren't that many casualties, so they didn't know what to do with themselves.
That's a good thing.
Yes, absolutely, Harold.
It's like sailing, Harold. It's hours of boredom, actually accentuated by moments of sheer terror.
Sheer terror, absolutely.
Yep.
Brian, I'm curious about the blowout on the front tire. I've thought about that once in a while, and I've never really came to conclusions about it. Just something else pops in my mind. What is one supposed to do on a blowout situation?
Honestly, I think I was probably 19 years old, and what I tried to do was stay on top of the motorcycle, because it was going where it wanted to go. I had absolutely if there would have been a car next to me, I would have been on top of the car. And I honestly don't think there was, there's, the best thing you can do about a front end blowout is keep your meets up in the first place, so that you don't run into that situation, because man.
Harold must have some insight with his training.
Yeah. Take your hand off the throttle, shift your weight as far as you can to the back to get that front wheel up. And just let it slow down.
and try not to get run over.
Well, if you can.
I had that happen on a Kawasaki 350 quite a number of years ago. I had my then young son with me, and we were on a backcountry road, not going very fast, fortunately. It was a scary moment for us.
I bet.
Yeah.
I have a police interceptor tire on the front of my Harley Sportster, and I've always believed in safety. And there are a couple of states that wouldn't put that tire on my bike because they said it's meant for a single rider, i.e. a policeman only on his bike. And I said, well, I ride solo, my wife doesn't ride with me, and I want the safest tire I can get on. And that's what has been recommended, and that's what I ride.
And that's called a police interceptor tire?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a run flat tire. So it'll lose air. It allows you to slow down with control.
And then on the rear, I do run a run flat tire.
The bead is extremely stiff. Very difficult tire to get off.
That's something that I think they
It
test
took the Harley dealership in Colorado Springs 2 days to get it on. They didn't want to harm the rim, but it took about 3 or 4 of them to get it on, and it's still there.
It's very heavily belted on the sidewalls.
Yep. Exactly.
35 years ago, I was involved with the run flat tire technology that the military was working with at that time. And fundamental thing about the run flat stuff, I mean, it's great for when you have an issue like somebody shooting out your tire or what have you. But the tires never lasted very long. I mean, the tire mileage on them was tremendously low because each and every one of them took on way more heat because of the run flat technology. And so the tire would break down quite a bit faster.
Interesting.
Were they multi-composite tires or were they?
Back then?
Yeah.
No, I don't remember on that. A lot of the stuff I was dealing with had to do with mechanical locks to keep for tread lock, and when you do that stuff, even at the wheel hub area, which you're locking in not locking in the tread, you're locking in the sides of the tire to the rim. So, I mean, that's a fundamental thing that goes on when you lose errors. You lose that connection between the tire and the rim. And so positive lock on those situations, that was a lot to do with what was going on with heat transfer in there.
Is it a lot like rim locks on a dirt bike then?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more mechanical with rim locks.
Well, they had stuff where they had tires mounted on the outside of a specialized rim, and then it was clamped down that way. They had stuff where they did inserts, run flat inserts inside, which was a composite type plastic material that was basically another tire inside the tire, if you would. They had positive locks. They had 2-piece rims whereby you mount the tire on the rim, and then as you're mounting the tire, you put this locking ring mechanism inside the tire that would lock the 2 beads together from each side. And then you clamp down the rim on that, which locked everything together. There's a number of different things that they worked on back then.
How does that affect the handling?
Well, you didn't need to worry about that in the military. Stiff handling was standard, right? This is back in the days when the guys were used to driving deuce and a halves.
Oh, good old deuce and a halves. Hey, here's a general question. Here's a general question for the group. How many miles did you get on just, an off-the-shelf tire?
Front or rear?
Yes, both.
I usually get between 12 and 14 on a front tire. And if I'm bad with my back tire, I'll get a little bit less. But I usually change them at the same time.
So 12 to 14?
Yeah.
I've got the new Elite 4s on this on my bike right now, and I've got a little over 12,000 miles on the back tire right now. And then normally I don't get much more than 13. I'm expecting to get closer to 20 on this, and still looking pretty good. I ran it for probably 1,000 miles light on lighter on the air than I should have, and I wore out some of the siding down on it a little bit level, but I'm still not down to the wear bars. So I think I'm going to run that one over 15,000 miles anyway.
Wow. 12,000 miles for you is one ride.
It is supposed to get 20,000.
12,000 miles for you is one ride, isn't it?
Lately. I'm ready to go again. In fact, I've signed up for the Arkansas ride.
I thought that was last weekend.
No, September.
September 13th, Harold, is it? Or 14th, whatever it is?
14th and 15th.
Yeah. Are you going too, Tom?
I'm still looking to do it, but I got to find a place to park Hava on 1 or 2 days while I'm there.
I still think you need to buy that dog a helmet.
10-4.
Goggles.
Are any of you going on that IFMR ride in Sacramento next month?
That's the polio ride, isn't it?
Yeah.
I would like to, but I don't.
There's several far away for me on this one this year.
Yeah. I checked it, and it's like real close to me, but it's also the same weekend I've got my CMSP PDW, Professional Development Workshop, and so if I want to keep teaching, I gotta attend the other thing.
Life and its priorities.
I got to get going, everybody. So thanks so much. It was good to talk to you. And,
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Great
Thanks,
story.
Brian.
Brian.
Thanks a lot.
It was awesome.
Ooh, now we can talk about him. He's gone.
Can I ask a non-motorcycle related question?
Yeah.
Is there a way possible for us to only get one Rotarian magazine instead of two?
Yes.
Can you do something? I have got 6 of them in the last 3 weeks. For the last 3 months, so.
Judy, we could switch yours to be one of your two to be digital, and then it's an email.
You could do that. That would be fine. I just don't need to get 2 magazines at the same time.
I don't know how to do that. Do you?
Yeah, I've done it before. I just have to remember how we did it, but there's a way to do it because we've got a lot of kids in the LeConner Club.
If you send an email to data@rotary.org, they'll forward it to the magazine people.
Great.
I'm reminded of a line out of My Blue Heaven in which the prosecutor asked Vinny why he has 50 books. And he says, in case I want to read it more than once.
Wow.
Well, I'm lost on that one.
It's a movie with, oh gosh, who was that? Was it Steve Martin?
Yeah.
Steve Martin and Rick Moranis, called My Blue Heaven. Very entertaining movie.
Fun film.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Maybe I can download it for my plane ride tomorrow.
Where are you going, Linda?
Raleigh, North Carolina.
Ooh, good barbecue.
Go see Carlton?
Huh?
So you gonna stop and see Carlton?
No, I don't know Carlton. We're going for a doctor's appointment on Thursday and coming back on Friday night.
Oh.
Hey.
They don't have doctors where you are?
Not good ones.
Yeah.
No, it was a good
Maybe
you should see Brian.
Linda, Carlton is one of the IFMR ride coordinators down there in North Carolina area. He's about 60 miles away from there, and he's going through his cancer treatments at Duke as well there.
It's worth the trip, right? Because we've been going there for 11 years. It's worth the trip.
Cool. Safe trip. Have safe travels.
Indeed.
It's a direct flight. Can't complain. So, you guys, anybody have an idea for a program for September 5th?
I can probably come up with something. Remind me tomorrow, if you would.
Okay.
You need to contact the same people too. We should do that.
I might come up with somebody else to talk about something.
I have an idea for one, but I don't know who to call. Maybe we could get somebody that's very familiar with motorcycle oils because I've heard Royal Purple now is no longer a good oil. And obviously we've got synthetics out there that are excellent. And maybe we could get a little bit of input on the types and betterments of oils, both gear oil and transmission, engine oil.
I wonder if Steve Seltzer could find somebody for us on that.
The next time we've got a date open is December 5th, I think it was. So it's September 5th and December 5th. There's nothing scheduled program-wise.
Maybe somebody could even talk about brands of oils that are the best. You know, Amsoil versus Mobil One versus whatever.
You want to work on that since you brought it up?
I don't know who to call. And where I am right now, the only oil that most people know is cooking oil.
I don't think he can use that on a bike.
Most
I don't think you can use it in a car.
Hey, Tom.
Yo.
Let's use this as an experience for learning and meeting the other members of our club. I'm going to send you the contact info for Steve Seltzer. And you can call and talk to him. He's been on the club meetings here with us on a regular basis, and tell him you want a speaker for us.
All right.
I'll send you the info.
10-4.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Tom.
September 5th or December 5th is what we've got right now.
Okay.
Just keep those in the back of your head.
Keep me informed, Jerry. I got the one I got the first aid kit from. I was going to contact them too.
For a speaker.
For a speaker, that is.
Oh, you mean to do the not for oil, for something else?
Yeah, the people that we got the first aid kit that we had on for the ride.
Oh, cool.
Which we didn't need, which was a good thing.
Didn't I take a Band-Aid out of it?
Yeah, you did do that.
Or
you know,
two
you
or
guys
three?
that went to Alaska, you ought to be doing a travel log. That would be good. You have lots of pictures and lots of experiences.
Yeah.
You ought to be telling us about it.
Anybody see the pictures set that Terry was putting out this last week?
Yeah, they were awesome.
What was it, 9 days you did, Terry?
8 days. 8 days. It was the 9/11 Memorial Ride. It's an escorted ride that starts in Shanksville, Pennsylvania at the crash site. And the police escorted all the way to the Arlington and the Pentagon. And the following morning, you're escorted all the way up to New York City.
When was that, Terry?
Well, it was this last weekend.
I was by the 9/11 Memorial twice this weekend. Saw no activity.
What days?
I went out Thursday and came back Sunday.
Which 9/11 Memorial? There's several.
Yeah, Shanksville.
Oh yeah, we went through Shanksville Friday morning.
Okay, I was in West Virginia.
Yeah, we had. I mean, it's amazing how the motor officers do it. I got a lot of respect for them. I've been involved with their activities for a bunch of years, and I took at least 25 or 26 different police motorcycle department motorcycles that were traveling with us for this event, and it's a pretty cool event.
Can you repost that on our website?
Sure, I can put together a little something on that, yeah, and the link to the website.
If you want to write something and send me some pictures, I'll get it up there.
Okay, I can do
Over
that.
from Paul. Paul made it to Vietnam, by the way. So he's there for this week, and then he goes to Singapore for 3 months.
We got some riding buddies down there. It's been a while though.
In Singapore?
Singapore, yeah.
Nice.
Travel down there on work once in a while.
Never
Need to make
been.
an introduction or something, let me know.
Yeah, if you want to reach out to him and do that, that'd be great. You can do that through Club Runner,
Yeah, I've got to get used to that. I've got my orientation coming up here for like September 10th or something like that.
Okay. I'll send you the email.
Please.
Okay. Anybody else have anything else?
I had a great ride on the Ohio Windy 9 this last weekend. If you haven't done that, that's fun rides.
Yep, I'll agree.
Yep.
Hey, by show of hands, who all's been on those rides?
Looks like almost everybody.
There you go, buddy. Look forward to when you're going to set that up.
Well, I'm still working with it. I'm working with you, Linda, and Chris, and I'm going to be sending out an email in the next couple of days on a Polio Plus ride East Coast.
I'm trying to figure out what I want to do next year to top off what we did this year for riding, but I've half a mind to try and spend a month next year and try and ride around major portions of the United States and meet a lot of you in person. So keep that in mind too.
You can do that route that hits all 50 states. Well, almost all the lower 48.
Have any of you tried that twistedroads.com thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done that. Twisted Roads, yeah.
Yeah, Rory just set me up on that. That's really neat.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm skittish about it because each of my bikes is sitting worth maybe $3,000. So it's like, what am I out?
What is it again?
It's kind of like Airbnb for your motorcycle. You can rent out your motorcycle, and you have to post one of yours as a rental to get access to rent other people's bikes.
Oh, that's a different one than I'm thinking about.
Okay. And then you can screen it. I mean, you choose who you're going to allow to rent your bike or not.
Wow.
What's it called again?
Twistedroads.com.
Twisted Roads.
No way.
Does anybody have any experience with backroads.com?
No.
What do they do?
It's a guy who publishes out-of-the-way places. I think it's mostly east of the Mississippi. He came to the inn here a couple of years ago and did it special, but he comes up with some fascinating stuff.
Mostly asphalt.
No, it's called backroads.com.
Yeah, but there's places to go visit via asphalt roads or dirt roads.
Oh, asphalt.
Okay.
Unless you want to follow me.
Oh.
The app has suggestions for roads around places you haven't been before, too.
Yeah.
I was at the Moto Bay Classic in San Francisco on Saturday, and it was such a great time. I mean, they had Cops versus Hooligans Gymkhana, where the cops are on their big cruisers going through these tight cone courses, and then guys who are on, I saw a guy who was on a Bull Taco, and a different guy who was on, I want to say it's like a little Moto Guzzi or something like that. And these guys are, side by side going through the Gymkhana lanes. It was really fun to watch them.
I bet the cops won.
Unless the other guy was on some tiny little dirt bike, like, the guy versus a Grom, one of the SCFPD cops on a Harley on a Road King versus a Grom. Well, the guy on the Grom took it.
Yeah.
The Reaver was on there pumping their stuff too. So.
There's one of the links on our website, if you all remember, or if you know Linda, is that motorcycleroads.com?
I don't think it's on there.
Rory turned me on that one this last trip, and it's kind of cool. You can go put it in an area, for instance, Arkansas. In fact, I'll share the screen here in a second.
You say motorcycleroads.com, Jerry?
Yeah. I'll share my screen real quick here.
Oh, dear me. Sorry.
And this is the website. And then you can go down and let's see, go and look at the area of Arkansas, for instance. And it gives you, when it updates, all cute, wonderful little twisty roads in the area to suggest.
Nice.
And you can click on them, and it kind of gives you more details about where you can stop and what have you. Can you see this? Is the spider web filling in on your screen too?
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's kind of and then if you click on them, I think there's more details that pop up. So it's kind of a cool website that like I said, Rory just turned me onto that one here. I forget where we were. Probably in Colorado or Idaho or something. Anyway, that's one we should probably put on our website.
Very good.
We've got it. Yeah, there's a whole list of websites that I need to get up there. It's good.
Jerry, didn't you get us on to, I think it was a site sponsored by Honda where you could plan your own rides with some assistance from them?
I didn't. I think Rory did that. Honda.
Oh, that was, excuse me, tripplanner.honda.com.
Yeah.
Right.
And most of you are gold wingers, right? It sounds that way, and I'm kind of looking.
Oh, no.
No, all these smart ones.
Yeah, well, that's one way to look at it.
Actually, I looked on the screen, and there's 2 of us right now on the screen that are gold wingers, I think.
Okay.
Oh, Chris
has
has
a gold wing when he's allowed to ride it.
I still have.
You got one, Rob?
Yeah.
Is Chris still with us?
Trying to sell it.
No, he jumped off.
Actually, I think the majority of us have motorcycles in our whole group. The survey that Paul last did, wasn't the majority of the bikes somewhere between 500 and 1,000 cc motorcycles, as I recall?
Yeah, I think so.
I think the majority was 1,000 to 1,500.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, and well, it depends on the vintage of the gold wings, but the newer ones, this last 20 years are 1,800 cc's.
Yeah, I drove the newest one down at MotoGP in Austin when I was down there this spring.
That's what Rory and Judy have.
Yeah, nice ride.
With
your the GCT or the 6-speed?
I took the 6-speed. My buddy took the DCT, but I rented a DCT Africa Twin in Tennessee this May.
I got behind a group of Victories on my ride last week. That's a pretty nice looking bike.
Yeah, too bad they quit making it.
The size of the rear light, it's bigger than any of us have.
Maybe the George Jetson model?
Say again.
The George Jetson model?
The Vision.
Oh, I don't know. We were on the move, and I just happened to be behind him.
Oh, you can't miss it. If it's a Vision, you'll know it.
Yeah.
Those things handle surprisingly well.
They do.
It had probably an 8-9 inch tail light.
They also had the biggest storage space on them for touring.
Do they?
Yeah.
It was a nice looking bike.
So why'd they stop making them?
John's bike screwed everybody up.
They all looked fairly new.
You can't go off road with them.
My plan.
About to get loud here. My wife just got home and the dog is going to go nuts.
All right. Well, we're at 5 o'clock. Huh?
Your time.
Your time, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, 8 o'clock your time on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Bedtime for a few of you.
Yeah.
And your point would be?
Or maybe it's past your bedtime. I don't know. Okay, who wants to lead the 4-way test?
All right, I'll go. Are you ready?
Ready.
The things we think, do, and say. First, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Rotary.
Will it be fun?
See you guys next week.
Next week's happy hour.
Safe ride.
Oh, that's right. Next week. Cool. See you guys.
See you guys.
Yes.
Bye. Bye, Blair.